Welcome everyone. I'm so excited to share today's project with you. It will be the first chapter of a new series I have planned. My imagination has been captured by all the magic and mystery of tarot cards. And so I'm going to be taking inspiration from some of the characters in the Major Arcana. To kick off this series in a dramatic way, I decided the first card I wanted to turn into an art doll was the Devil. As a base for this doll, I will be using a hunter from the Ever After High line. This will be my first time repainting a male doll, so I'm both excited and nervous. Hunter has a beautiful tanned complexion, which I love, and he also comes with a really wonderful pair of boots that have a lot of interesting details in its sculpt, so I'll be taking full advantage of that later on. Off camera, I remove his factory paint with 100% pure acetone, as well as cutting his hair super short and removing the rest from the inside. I wanted to give this character a widow's peak, so I sketch out the shape with a brown pencil. I also wanted to change the shape of his undercut a little and give him a centre part, so I sketch out those changes as well. I will be rerouting the long section of his hair, so to create new plug holes, I heat up a needle over a flame and plunge it into his head. You can just use a room temperature needle, but the hole will start to close itself as the vinyl of the head has an elastic quality. Using a hot needle will slightly melt the vinyl, so the hole will stay the width of the needle and not close up on itself. This will make rerouting much easier later on. Once I finished adding the new hairline and part line, I then paint all of his scalp black to prepare it. I create my own hair from 100% acrylic yarn. To try and keep this video shorter, I didn't show this process, but I do show it in some of my other videos, so if you're curious, you can find the process here on my channel. I definitely couldn't create a devil character without giving him horns, so I print out a pair on my 3D printer. I use my Dremel tool to hollow out a section at the base of the horns big enough to fit a magnet in. I then use a very strong 2-part epoxy glue to secure the magnet in place. I then trace out where on his head the other magnets will go, and also use my Dremel tool to create a hole there. To secure these ones in place, I switch to using Gorilla Glue. This glue expands as it dries, and I always find it to be the best solution for adding modifications to the softer vinyl of a doll's head. I use a piece of masking tape to hold the magnets in place as the glue dries. The masking tape also keeps the glue flush to the scalp, and ensures that as the glue expands, it only goes out and into the inside of the doll's head. I then give the horns 3 or 4 thin layers of black acrylic paint. I thought about dry brushing the horns to bring out the beautiful details in the sculpt, but I decided to keep them jet black and super glossy instead. I thought it would look really sleek. So I also give each horn 2 coats of glossy varnish. Now we can finally start the face. I start as usual by sketching in the eye shape. I used to do this step in red pencil, but I found that sometimes the red pigment can stain the doll, so if I wanted to retry the shape, it can be a bit of a problem. This time I decided to try sketching first in light brown, and I thought it worked really well. I wanted to give him brown eyes that glowed almost gold, so I start building up colour in his iris, starting with some yellows and oranges. used pastel dust to start adding highlights and contours to his face. I wanted his face to be very chiseled, so I don't hold back with this effect. I add some purple tones to the inner corner of his eyes, as well as a little around his temples. I think adding cool tones to a face really add a sense of realism. And this particular shade of purple gives this doll a kind of sleep-deprived and tired look, but also keeping him kind of glamorous and attractive. After a spray of Mr. Super Clear, I start the second layer of his face, mostly just enhancing the colours and shapes I've already laid down, as well as starting to define his eye socket and adding some red blush over the contours. Using a black pan pastel and a small brush, I start creating the general shape for his eyebrows. Once I'm happy with that, I can start drawing in the individual hairs. I actually use 3 different brands of black pencil, as each have a slightly different opacity and texture as it gets laid down on the vinyl. And I think that adds to the overall effect of the brow. I also add some highlights with grey and white hairs. While I'm sketching little hairs, I also decide to give him his eyelashes. To add depth and dimension to his eyes, I add black pastel to the top half of the eye shape, creating a shadow that his brow bone and eyelashes would create. I add some highlights with beige and cream pencils and then move on to working with acrylic paints. This step really adds opacity, vibrancy, and extra sharp details to the face-up. I start by using 3 shades of golden yellow to create the glowing effect in his eyes. The devil is often depicted as being quite ugly and grotesque, as well as having goat legs. On my channel I have already created dolls with animal legs 4 times, so I didn't want to go down that route for my devil. In the tarot, the devil represents physical pleasure and material goods, as well as money, power, addiction, and lust. So I decided to create a fully human incarnation of the devil, and make him very attractive and enticing. I feel like that really makes sense with the meaning of his card in the tarot system. I would love to hear from you guys if there's anything in particular you want to see in any upcoming tarot-inspired dolls. So please leave all your ideas and suggestions in the comment section. I really look forward to reading them all. After adding some watercolour paint freckles to his skin and glossing his eyes and lips, the face is all done. Finally, we can finish his hairdo. To create the undercut look, I add black flocking to the rest of his exposed scalp. I make my own flocking by cutting up tiny pieces of the black yarn I used for his hair, and I apply it with a thin layer of white craft glue. I pack on as much flocking as I can and leave it for about 40 minutes, or whatever drying time is given for your brand of glue. I then gently brush off the excess flocking. Since he represents material goods, I had to make sure he was appropriately accessorized. I create 3 earrings for him using gold beads and jewelry findings I had in my stash. Again, I use the heated up needle trick to create some holes in his ears, and then I simply insert each jewelry piece. For the small hoop earrings, just one end is actually inside the doll, and I just use a pair of pliers to bend the other end around the vinyl and let it rest there. I knew I wanted to incorporate a snake into his design somehow, and I ended up going with a big tattoo on his torso. I quickly draw a mock-up of the design on a piece of paper and keep it nearby as I copy it onto the doll. For the first pass, I just use a lead pencil as it's very easy to erase and correct any mistakes I might make. Once I'm happy with that, I can lock it in place with a coat of MSC and then start going over it with black pencil. I add details and also create some shadowing with black pastels. I also decide to add a tattoo to each hand. With the tattoos all done, I can start the body blushing. I use browns and creams to add contours to the torso, as well as adding red blushing and some freckles to match the face. After blushing the hands, I add wrinkles to the knuckles and finger joints and add white details to the fingernails. I use my pliers and small pieces of gold wire to create rings for him. To finish his manicure, I also add some gloss to his fingernails. On to his outfit. I wanted to create a look that was historically inspired, but also timeless and with a modern sense of style. I was inspired by costumes from the opera Faust and different garments from modern runways, taking different elements of each to create my own design. I ended up going with this velvet patchwork jacket. I knew that a lot of his design would be black, so I wanted to put lots of vibrant colours into this one garment. After cutting out all the pieces, I sew all the bodice sections together, as well as attaching the puffy shoulder pieces to the lower sleeve. I then sew the sleeves to the bodice, always good side to good side. I'm super happy with how it turned out. To add a different texture to the piece, I decided to add some tassels around the sleeve. I wish I had sewn these on before attaching the sleeves to the body, but you live and you learn. I also glue some nail charms to the collar to look like a clasp closure. To finish the outfit, I sew an undershirt with some tie cords with gold crimp bead details, as well as a simple pair of black velvet trousers. Since he is the first of the Tarot series, as well as being a supernatural character, I wanted to give him a tarot card charm. I love the idea that he's self-aware that he exists inside of this kind of tarot universe. I feel like the devil always knows what's going on. I create a gold chain belt with a magnetic closure and attach the tarot charm to it with a jump ring. To make the boots fit in with his sleek aesthetic, I paint them a glossy black. The same as his horns, I chose not to dry brush them, and instead let the glossiness of the finish bring out the sculpted details. However, I wanted to bring in a touch of luxury and detail, so I wanted to turn the buckle details gold. I used these round nail charms which fit over the sculpted details perfectly, and used gem tack to glue each charm on one at a time. I also cut a few in half to help them fit into the nooks and crannies of the boot. To finish the look, I add a fleur-de-lis charm over the buckle. Even though I love the black horns, I wanted to bring more gold into the top section of his design to balance the final look. I use a chameleon flake with a red gold shift to add some luxurious details. And with that, he's all done. Please like this video to support my art here on YouTube, and subscribe if you want to see more of my content. Also, please leave something in the comments below. I really love hearing what you all have to say. Without further ado, I present the Devil. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and to follow me on Instagram at Mr. Super Customs. See you next time. Have an awesome day.